Have you ever like found yourself kind of wondering why someone stays in a relationship that, just seems painful? Like from the outside looking in?
Yeah.
I feel like it's a question we all ask ourselves sometimes.
Oh, sure.
And today, we're going to do a deep dive into this idea.
Okay.
Using this text, why did you stay? The complexity of loving through pain.
Sounds fascinating.
So one of the things that really jumped out at me from this text was when Elena says, people don't stay in painful relationships because they're weak.
Right.
And, it's so easy to just kind of think that, right? Like, oh, if they were stronger, they would just leave.
Yeah. You'd think it would be simple, but it's not.
So, what else is going on? I'm guessing there are like so many other things that go into this.
Definitely. It's so easy to judge from the outside looking in, like we were just saying, but there's just this complex mix of emotions, there are fears, there's hope, there's societal pressures, that all kind of contribute to someone staying in a situation that might seem painful to others.
Absolutely. And, we also see this idea of, Elena says, love is blinding.
Right.
And how does love, literally affect our judgment?
Well, I think about the early stages of love.
Right.
Yeah, the honeymoon phase.
Right. You've got that rush of dopamine and oxytocin.
Well, those love chemicals.
Yeah, exactly. And it creates these intense feelings of euphoria and attachment. And it's, literally rewiring our brains, to just focus on the positives and downplay the negatives. Our brains kind of become masters of confirmation bias, seeking out all the things that support those loving feelings, even if it means that we're kind of ignoring some red flags along the way.
Oh, wow. So it's almost like a biological hijacking of our brain, and it makes sense why it's so hard to see clearly sometimes, or to think clearly, I guess.
Exactly.
And, Elena also says, the idea of losing someone feels like losing yourself.
Right.
I think that's something a lot of people, especially if they've been in a long-term relationship, can probably relate to. Especially as time goes on, right? Our lives become so intertwined with another person. You've got those shared dreams, you've got routines, there's financial dependencies. All these things contribute to this feeling of a shared identity with that person. So then when you think about leaving, you're not just losing a partner, you're almost losing a part of yourself. You're losing that future that you envisioned. It can almost feel like an existential crisis.
It makes so much sense why people would stay. So when we're talking about all of this, Ray asks, but is that even love? And I love that he asked that, because it's is it? How do you distinguish between really genuinely loving someone and, I don't know, being afraid to be alone, right, or whatever that is?
That's the question, right? It's puzzled philosophers and therapists for ages, and there's no easy answer, right? But I think one key difference, one way to try and kind of get at it, is to think about intention. Genuine love, it's about seeking the well-being of the other person, even if that means letting go. Whereas dependence is really about needing that other person in order for you to feel complete or secure.
So you're kind of holding on to that familiar comfort, even if it's painful, and mistaking that for love.
Yeah. And this is where I think about attachment theory comes in. Our early relationships really shape our attachment styles. The way that we related to our caregivers when we were children often influence how we relate to other people in our adult lives, our romantic partners. So for example, someone with an anxious attachment style might really fear abandonment. And that can lead them to stay in a relationship even when they're unhappy, simply because they don't want to be alone.
That is so interesting, how our past experiences shape our present.
Yeah.
And I think about what Elena says, staying doesn't mean you'll ever get the love you deserve.
Yeah, that's powerful. And, a lot of people stay because they have this hope that things will change.
Yeah.
Right? But the thing is, often the dynamics that are creating the pain, they're so deeply ingrained in the relationship. So it really becomes about recognizing your own worth and understanding that you deserve a love that nourishes you, that uplifts you.
Absolutely. And speaking of kind of moving on and healing and all of that, Elena says, it's okay to grieve.
Right.
And it's leaving doesn't just erase the love you felt, right? You don't just magically stop feeling.
Exactly. It's a process. It's like any other form of grief, right?
Yeah.
You go through the sadness, the anger, the confusion, and it takes time to heal, to disentangle your identity from the relationship and really kind of rediscover who you are outside of that.
Which makes me think of Ray, who says, I wish someone told me that before I lost years, trying to fix what was already shattered. And I think that's such a powerful thing for anyone listening to consider.
Yeah.
Sometimes that bravest act of love is to love yourself enough to walk away.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
So if you are listening, I want you to just ask yourself, if love is meant to empower and uplift us, at what point does staying in a painful situation start to erode your sense of self? It's a big question. I think a lot about it myself.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. I hope this helped you think about some of these things.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.